Covenant is about action. Our reading began with these words. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah. I will make. A covenant is something that can be made. Let's stick with that for a moment. Covenant isn't something wishy-washy or theoretical. It's about action. A covenant is something you make, you keep, you enter into, you uphold. Indeed, the word covenant can be used as a verb. A person covenants, a group of people covenant together. And for me, when I look back at 2018, I saw a lot of covenanting going on. I think back to January of last year, when around 80 or so of us came up and added carabiners to this chain as a symbolic act, where we actively affirmed or reaffirmed our partnership with God and with each other. And so our year began with covenanting. But then I think of the 2nd of June last year, when Jenny and I covenanted together with you as our witnesses, right on this second step here. And we made promises, we exchanged rings, we gave ourselves to each other. And it was all about action. It was about their verbs: made, exchanged, gave. Covenant was something we entered into. And then a couple of months after that, I took the wedding service of one of my best friends from school. And when I think about it, I didn't marry them, although that language is sometimes used. I led the service. I set the scene, I prompted their words, but they married each other. They entered into the covenant freely and intentionally. I was just facilitating. And as I reflect on these covenants that I think about last year, and how covenant is about action, I think it's fair to say that we don't slide into covenant. We decide into covenant. We don't slide into covenant, we decide into covenant and enter into it freely and intentionally because we want to. And the same is true this morning. There will be an opportunity for each person here after this reflection to actively bring up to the front their coloured block and lay it here by the cross. And this is a symbolic act that represents our commitment to God and to each other. And it's not necessarily for everyone. This symbolic act is not something to be taken lightly or to get swept up in because other people are doing it. We don't slide into covenant. We decide into covenant. And for you, you might not be in place to covenant with Working Baptist Church at this time. Perhaps you're a visitor, perhaps you've only been coming a few weeks, you're not sure whether it's the church for you. And that's absolutely okay. Hold on to your block and discern with God prayerfully. If you're from another church, you might want to give it to the leadership of your church you're from. Or you might want just to hold it until you know which is the place you're called to. We'd love, of course, to see loads of people bring up their blocks. But please, let's not go through the motions. If we're going to do it, let's do it freely, intentionally, and really enter into the covenant because we want to. And may this simple act of bringing up a block not just be forgotten, but may it be the start of a whole series, a whole host of acts throughout the year. Serving, loving, caring, cleaning, welcoming, praying, discerning, sharing, witnessing, extending hospitality. As you bring forward your block, say goodbye to being a consumer and take up the role of contributor. Because covenant, it's about action. Mike spoke about this last week, how we need to trust in God, but play our parts, offer ourselves to Him, not expect God to do it all, when actually He's calling us, we saw in that video, to be co-workers, co-builders, to enter into partnership with Him, co-creators with Him. And by bringing your block forward this morning, you're saying yes to being God's co-worker within this precious church. Let me share with you another angle. Covenant shapes our attitude. Through the prophet Jeremiah, God describes the new covenant as a relationship where his law will be put in his people's minds and written on their hearts. Put simply, God's new covenant involves a transformation, a transforming of heart and mind, or we could say a shaping of attitude. How does this happen? For us, for Christians, Jesus lived out the law, interpreted the law, fulfilled the law, embodied the heart of the law. Love was love in the flesh. He did what we couldn't do, but now his Spirit is dwelling within us, so our minds and hearts can slowly be transformed. He's changing us from the inside out. As we follow in his way, our characters, our attitudes are aligning with his. But this can only happen if you say yes. It can only happen if you partner, if you want to cooperate with him, if we play our parts. My conviction is that healthy covenant relationships with God and with each other will shape our attitude. Because our attitude is shaped when we love someone other than ourselves. As a teenager, for me, there was this question that was always humming in the back of my mind. What's in it for me? I know it might be a normal question for a teenager to have, but I remember whether I was going somewhere, meeting friends, or going out with my parents, or doing something else, there was this question humming, what's in it for me? And I'm not saying that question isn't there anymore. I'm just saying it's not the dominant question, because my attitude has and continues to be shaped by my love for someone other than myself. And for me, it started when I was a teenager, when I responded to the love of God. There's a theologian, a priest, Henry Nouwen, and he talks about our relationship to God like this. Listen to this. God says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. This is a fundamental truth of your identity. This is who you are, whether you feel it or not. You belong to God from eternity to eternity. Life is just a little opportunity for you during a few years to say, I love you too. I decided when I was a teenager to say I love you too to God. And in that way I entered into a covenant with him. I gave myself, and my attitude began to be shaped by my love for him and consequently my love for others. I'm not saying that that's been without mistakes, but with God's help, I'm slowly moving from this what's in it for me question to how can I give myself in love to others and to God. Is that a movement that you're making too? Imagine if Jesus set out for the cross with the question, what's in it for me, in mind? Would he have even gone? I think more what was in his mind was that if humanity is going down, I'm going down with them. That's the cross. So that they, if willing, might be raised to new life. That's the resurrection. His attitude was most perfectly shaped by covenant faithful love. And in Jesus we see God's faithfulness to the covenant with his people. He's not giving up on his creation. He's going to see it through. God's in it for the long haul. God's going to confront death. God's going to work it out with us. God's going to give his very self for us. And if that's how God behaves in covenants, how might that inspire us to be in our covenant relationships? How might our love for him, our love for others, shape our attitude? When we bring up our block and see the blocks that have already been laid there, will we be asking what's in it for me? Or will we be asking how can I give myself in love to these people and to God? And for those of us who do covenant together this morning, will it make a difference to our attitude? Will we take seriously our commitment to God and to one another this year? Will we remember? Just one more angle, quickly. So we've had action, we've had attitude, and now atmosphere. I sometimes wonder what it might be like to work at a big department store that always seems to have a closing down sale. I'm not saying any particular one. I wonder what the atmosphere is like. I wonder what the atmosphere is like when you're wondering, will the store close? When will it close? How big is the deficit? Should I find another job? Will the company suddenly be bought out? How long have we got? That atmosphere sounds unhealthy to me. And in the same way, I wonder if some faith communities, even some churches, can have an atmosphere. Is God for us or against us? Have we done something wrong? Why aren't we having a breakthrough with our prayer or evangelism or something like this? Are we being punished? Has something got to change? Is God on our side or not? Will God break off his relationship with us? There's this kind of uneasiness, this anxiety, almost dread. Sometimes we need a promise to change the atmosphere. And right at the end of our reading, God says through Jeremiah that regarding the new covenant, that he will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. God makes this astonishing promise that he will remember his people's sins no more. And this is an important dimension of the new covenant that he will make with his people. The covenant promises create a certain atmosphere. And there isn't room in this new covenant for anxiety about whether God is for us or against us, whether he's going to suddenly pull the rug from our feet, or whether he's going to break off relationship with us. God promises to forgive. We see that most clearly in Jesus' life. Jesus teaching his ministry of forgiveness, his words at his crucifixion, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. The covenant promise we read about in Jeremiah creates a certain kind of atmosphere. God will not let sin get in the way of his relationship with his people. His promise is stronger. God is not endlessly at the ready to break off the covenants. God's promise of forgiveness sets the culture and creates an atmosphere where his people can grow and flourish without background anxiety or dread. I think it's the same with the church. When we take seriously our commitment to partner with each other, to walk together and watch over one another, it creates a certain kind of atmosphere. An atmosphere where we know we can rely on each other. Where we're not doing this faith thing alone. We're doing it together, sustained by the prayers, encouragement, discernment of others. And I believe Worthing Baptist Church is already cultivating that kind of atmosphere. We're thriving today because we're a church of promising people. I don't mean we're especially special or talented, although we are. But what I mean is that we promise each year to faithfully walk with God and with each other. This makes us the precious church that we are. Covenant almost gives us roots, like a tree from which we can grow and flourish. These roots give us stability and allow us to dream dreams, to take risks, to think outside of the box, even experiment, knowing that we're grounded in those promises. And the bottom line is that if we know our relationships with God and one another are secure, we're going to be more likely to take risks, share our faith, step out of our comfort zones, extend hospitality. And so I want to ask you, by coming forward with your block, will you be saying yes to cultivating an atmosphere like that? Will you be saying, yes, I want to bring stability to this church. I want to be depended on, to pray, to serve, to love, to give, to cherish this precious church with God's help for as long as I can.